It was a blessing. Folks, I think I did. I think I did everything right. I think. In fact, I'm sure I did. And I even have a guest on hold. So I did everything right. Okay. So first, I'm going to address a couple of phone calls that I got because I gave my number out a couple of weeks ago. And now everybody's calling me, which is fine. And in fact, the guy who made me put my phone number out, I forgot his name. I should have wrote it down. But he's one that said, would you like a thoroughbred trainer to come on with you? And I said, yes. And so far, everybody called me but him. But that's okay. I'm sure he's trying to get one. And I hope he does. The other question I got about 15 calls because on my last podcast, I think it was podcast 63, I mentioned 2 or 3 times when asked my opinion about the bit that they put on Sierra Leone, and that was this bit. Someday I'm going to learn how to put pictures on this thing. That's the next thing. First, I got to get this down pat. Then I'll learn how to put pictures up instead of holding these things up. This is the bit that Chad Brown put on Sierra Leone for the race. And I made 2 comments that day last week that this was not going to work. It was, anyway, you saw the race and it proved me right. In fact, one guy called up and said because of that comment, he made a lot of money. I forgot who the guy was. Now, yeah, I'm just going to give I'm going to give my opinion because I was asked. I'm not trying to say anything bad about the trainer, about the horse. I'm answering a question. They asked me what would I do and what I think what the problem was, because obviously the jockey change and that bit didn't do the trick. He did exactly the same thing as he did before. And I made a comment. I made 2 comments. One comment was that this bit was not going to do the trick. The other comment was that the jockey should. If it was my horse, I would give the jockey instructions if I wasn't able to figure it out, which I'm sure I would have figured it out by then. But if I didn't, and he still ran in like that on the right line with his head twisted around, I would have just said, don't ride tight. When you're going around a horse, don't ride tight. Just make the turn wide. This way you have time to pull them straight. But there are what I think what they probably did, and I'm only guessing now. And like I said, I'm answering questions. They probably worked them with this bit, this cage bit that they call it, and he probably steered well. But you know, when in the race without this, with the plain snaffle bit, he was straight. He's always straight until he has to go around other horses, and you're pulling on the right line. So now, what I would have done was put him in that. When I changed this bit, I would have put him in that same position, coming around the last turn, steer him out around other horses, and see if the bit works. Had that happened, it would have he would have been running in, and he would have known prior to the race that this didn't work. Now, the bit I would have changed if that's the route I wanted to go. The bit I would have changed was something similar to that, and these are all bits that we use all the time. Now here's the bits. This would be my first choice right up here. It's the same exact bit, only it has an extension right here, and the bit would go in the horse's mouth just like this. And the left line would go on this outside ring here, which gives you leverage. And on the right side, the line would go on the inside ring. This would give you leverage. So when he's on both lines, when he's going straight, and if you have a hold of him, he'll be a little bit on the left line. So when you're yanking on the right line, he won't hang on it. He'll still be even, and you'll have more because you have more leverage on the outside. So that bit first. Or this bit is basically the same, except this bit has more of a curve, and they come in 4.5 inch wide and 5 inches wide. I would get the one that's closest to the horse's mouth, meaning 4.5 inches, because these little leather pieces here, they have a stainless steel post that goes through them, so the bit can't slip through the horse's mouth like his snaffle bit does. So not only do you have leverage where you have more on the left line, you have at the end of each bit, right up against his cheeks, you have these leather pieces that inside have a post that comes out that's stainless steel that the bit can't come through his mouth. And you could see it. You could see here's the bit that he put on, only without the extension. So my first choice would be this or this. That's what I would do, and then I would work him, and I would work him with another horse, and I'd follow the other horse just like he does. And coming around the last turn, I would go around him and have the other horse keep taking him out. So you're always steering out and see if the extension on the left side of the sideline a bit works. He should be even. That should straighten him out. But you have to train him in the same situation as if he was in a race, not just train him all by himself. The other thing I would probably do is, I'm not sure if it would help. I notice he wears a hood, and it's a can't see back hood. It's just the pieces where he can't see horses behind him. They have blinkers now. They call hoods blinkers, same thing, where it's an extended cup that comes out and covers most of the eye. So for the horse to see out of his left eye, he would have to turn his head this way so he has a clear vision. That might not help. I think that Sierra Leone, I seen him race. I watched him gallop out. I think he's sound. That problem, I don't believe is a lameness problem. I wouldn't bet my life on it, but he looks real good up until the time when he has to steer around horses and he gets on that right line. So to me, it's just a habit. Assuming there's not a lameness problem, which I don't think there is, and assuming that his mouth is okay, because at 3 years old, they have caps. Sometimes they rip the inside of their mouth, and that his mouth could be a little tender. But assuming all of that is okay, I would try one of these two bits that I mentioned, and even put maybe a little line burr on this side. This way, when you have him twisted, the line that's up against his neck has a burr on it, and sometimes they'll respect that burr and turn this way, and he won't have that problem. Them are the basic kindergarten steps I would take if he was my horse. And if that didn't work, there are a few other things that I could do. But I think right now it's just it's either a habit or it's just something that he does. And you just have to correct him. Okay, that takes care of that. That answers that question, I hope. The other thing I wanted to talk about, because they were asking me about foot problems, because I talked a lot about thoroughbreds and oblong feet, thin walls. Thoroughbreds get quicked a lot and everything else. And rather than go through that whole thing, because I already did, I would, and any trainer out there that has any kind of problem with a quarter crack, with corns, with soles that are shoes that are too big, that are soles that are bruised, and anything like that, go to Ian McKinley. Ian McKinley's a good friend of mine, and he started this years ago. And he does lacing, patching quarter cracks, glue on shoes, and he does it for the Sheikh of Araby, the Dubai, all the best horses in the country, all the best racehorses in the country. He already worked on, and he has his website's unbelievable. He's the best at what he does. I was going to do something like this when I lost my license and I wasn't allowed on racetracks, but I didn't want to take the chance because if I was in a racetrack where I wasn't supposed to be, the trainer would get in trouble. So I never did it, but it's a hell of a business. He's the king of it. He's the best. And so just go to Ian McKinley. Just look up blacksmith or farrier Ian McKinley. Go to his website for any kind of foot issues, and he's the best. And if you have a serious problem, just get in touch with him, and he'll straighten you. He'll straighten you right out. Now, one other thing, because I keep getting asked about drugs, and we're going to talk a little bit today about the everybody talks about horse racing but everybody talks around the edges. They don't get into it. They don't really get into the nitty gritty. And that's what I did in telling my story. But for 1 minute, I don't want people to think that I was the only one that did it. Like I said many times, I didn't invent corruption. It was there when I got there. And every year, for 100 years, well, recently for probably the last 50 years, I would say every year there's court cases where jockeys and trainers and drivers get accused of fixing races and everything else. Now, I hate to talk so much about that, but it comes up because of my reputation, and because in one way, I really would like harness racing. There's a lot of good people in harness racing. I would really like it to survive, but you can't keep beating around the bush. Now, there's a lot of other things that have to be fixed aside from the drugs. The drugs are bad because you gotta understand one thing. If you as a human being take a drug, and I don't care what it is, the doctor prescribes a drug for you, you go get it, and you read what it does. And then you read the side effects. The side effects are a page and a half long, and it just tells you what it's going to do. It stops your ulcer from bleeding. Then you read the side effects. It can kill you, cause heart attacks. Okay. And that's with every drug. Even with an aspirin, a plain aspirin. Now, just think of all of these drugs that these trainers are giving these horses on a daily basis, that some of them now, they're all synthetic stuff and from out of the country. You have no idea. They just give it to them, not even concerned about the side effects. And the horse can't say, hey, my stomach is killing me, my ulcer is bleeding, I feel like throwing up, I feel nauseous, I can't. None of them side effects, and there's hundreds of them. Nobody even talks about that. They just drugs. Years ago, I remember many years ago, there was a guy coming around selling $100 of 100 cc syringe full of vodka. It was plain vodka. He sold it for $100 because it's going to stop a horse from bleeding. Every trainer bought it. Every trainer. Everybody's looking for an edge. Everybody's looking, and it's really disgusting. They started experimenting with pot in the 70s. I remember the first time I saw it was in Pompano Park. They were giving horses pot, feeding them pot. It just on and on and on and on, and it's just disgusting. But you have to if you're gonna try to fix it, you have to know everything that's happening. What's the sense of fixing the drug problem, which is a major problem, if guys are fixing races on their own? You got to delve into it and handle all every problem at one time. And that's why I told Freddie Hudson, let's have a round table. Let's get some real look. I remember casinos when they were this is many years ago when I used to go to Vegas. The casinos were trying to figure out why they were starting to lose a lot of money, and that's when card counting started, and all of these little gimmicks started with all of these wireless things and people, and what did they do? The guy that cheated the most, when they caught him and arrested him, they hired him and paid him a big salary to work for them and tell them what to look for, how to look for it. And this is what has to be done, in my opinion. Anyway, there's another thing I want to say, and then we're going to get to our guest. The other thing I want to say is last week, podcast 63. It was a clusterfuck. That's what it was. And I tried to get two friends of mine on 3 or 4 times, and it was unbelievable. And one of the listeners wrote to me. It was second only to Who's on First by Abbott and Costello. But the next day, I got this in the mail. And here's what I got in the mail, and I have it framed. Here's what it says. Let's see if you can see it. It says, Achievement Award. This certifies that Against All Odds podcast number 63, and they named it Can You Hear Me Now, has been awarded the most fucked up podcast on YouTube. So I got this award. So I'm the only guy on YouTube that got this award. But my two friends, we're going to figure it out, and we're going to get them back on because they have a lot of important things to say. Now, I started this live thing, and I named the live shows that I do because I enjoy just answering questions, and I enjoy that better than just telling my story. Even though if I got a question pertaining to my story, I will get into it. So I named it Anything Goes. And there's this harness horse trainer, and his name is Scott Nance. And he asked me, he says he agrees with a lot of what I say. He watches every week, and I asked him, I says, if you have something to say, I'll put you on, and we'll talk about it, and just be respectful and talk about not around the fringes. Talk about what's happening at racetracks around the country, because after this drug thing gets fixed, and I don't know why they can't do it simultaneous, fix the other thing. And if the other thing's guys fixing races, they were questions that I have. What was one of them questions? Who was the honest drivers at the Meadowlands?
The first question of the evening, Vic Meisch. Larry, at the Meadowlands, what driver you think, in your opinion, was alive the most? I say John Campbell. Who do you say?
Okay. When Meadowlands first opened, a lot of people, a lot of drivers came, a lot of trainers came, because it was a mile racetrack. They didn't want to race on a half mile like Yonkers and Roseville, and the purses were very, very good, probably the highest purses, and I think they had something like $13-14 million races. And in the beginning, naturally, what was going on at all the other racetracks was started to go on there, but they found out that they couldn't fix races because the stretch was 1/4 mile long. You couldn't get lost long enough. You couldn't, you can get yourself jammed up and in trouble and everything else, but you still had 1/4 mile to go, and so a lot of that stopped. So my answer to that question, probably since for the last 20, 30 years, just about every driver there is 100%. I don't think any of that stuff goes on anymore, and some of it is because they just race for a lot. They race for a lot of money, And in the beginning, some of them, not all of them, they were, and that's why Joe DeFrank, the race secretary at the Meadowlands, he saw what was going on. He was a seasoned guy, and he knew, and he did something pretty smart. He didn't call, and I'm not going to name the drivers. He didn't call some of these New York guys in, and guys got. He didn't call them in and say, "Look, I know what you're doing. I know this. I know that." He just sent for John Campbell, Ray Remen, Doherty. He sent for all the guys that he knew were 100%. And little by little, the bad guys, the guys that were in that fixing and all of that stuff, they realized they couldn't do it. And a lot of them went back to the tracks where they first started from. And what was left was 99% good guys that tried there. And plus the purse money was very, very good. And there was no reason for them to fool around. So that answers that question. All right. There was something else I wanted to say. I have to say this just in case he's watching. There was a good friend of mine, Bill Dieters, and I just saw it today for the first time. Terry Dieters. He left me his phone number. Terry, if you're watching, I will call you. I'm sorry, I just got to it. I just have so much stuff piled up, but I will get to it, and I'd love to have you on to talk about your experiences in harness racing. He's a successful harness trainer now, and his father was a great guy, harness trainer also. All right, what was I saying? I was gonna bring Scott on. Okay, now let's see. This is my first attempt at bringing somebody on. Let's see if it works. Wait a minute.
All right.
You did it.
How you doing, Larry? How you doing, buddy?
Hiya, Scott.
I'm here. Finally.
Okay.
I'm here.
Okay. I just told everybody. I just told them your name. I didn't tell them where you're racing at, and I told them that if we're going to talk about harness racing, in the stage that it's in now, ready to collapse, and everybody wants it fixed, you have to talk about why it's ready to collapse. And part of that are rules, part of it is regulations, part of it is incompetent people that are running it. And I talked a little bit about that, but go ahead. Tell whoever's watching what you have to say, and tell us a little bit about yourself.
Thank you, Larry. Thanks for having me on. It's been a while, and I appreciate you having me on. But yeah, to fix things, sometimes you got to talk about the tough things that no one wants to talk about. I mean, you got to lay it out there and say this is the way it is, and everybody is in agreement that we all want to fix this great business, but doing it is another thing, because people don't want to talk about the real stuff that goes on that actually hurts the business, not helps it. Now, I'm at Hoosier Park in Indiana. I got a small stable here. I've been here 3 years. I was down in Pompano for the last year there, and then I came here from Pompano, and I've been here for 3 years, and then I raced some in Chicago at Hawthorne because I got some Illinois breds. But Hoosier is a top-notch racetrack. I mean, they do everything. It's a real racetrack. They have a lot of rules here. They have a lot of things that horsemen don't like, that don't go on at other tracks. It's just the way it is. One of the problems, Larry, that I think goes on right now is that these race commissions and the people that are appointed to make decisions are not knowledgeable in the business. They're not horsemen. They're not knowledgeable. Where they get them from, I don't know, but they seem to make decisions that are not good for the business when they think they are. You know what I'm saying?
I know what you're saying. You could, if you could, mention some of them.
Well, one of the things, and I know you've touched upon this before on your other podcast, is nowadays, they have basically taken away any kind of medication, any kind of therapeutic drugs, anything that you can help a horse recover after the race with. You can't use anything anymore. I mean, they don't even make iodine anymore. You can't get good DMSO. They don't make it. They've taken it all off the market. Whether it's the PETA people that are saying you can't even go into the paddock with a little bit of scurf on a horse's leg, they scratch you if you have a little scurf on the leg. So, I mean, they go overboard. Okay, it's not good for the horses.
Scott, let me stop you because I just want to delve into one or two things that you said, and then we'll go on. I remember years ago, this is 30, 40 years ago, when they would have a veterinarian at the entrance to the paddock, and if he smelled DMSO on the horse, he would scratch the horse, and it started just about then. The difference, and because I've been in both divisions of racing, both standardbreds and thoroughbreds. A standardbred, you can have a working blister on the horse, so just a mild scurf, just to keep the blood flowing in areas where there's a poor blood supply, maybe down and low by an ankle or a tendon, and that was okay as long as the horse was sound, and many of them are sound. But to keep them sound, you have to do what you have to do. Where in the thoroughbreds, if there's one piece of scurf, they would just scratch the horse. The vet comes around in the morning and examines every horse that's in that afternoon. They scratch them, and I thought that's kind of idiotic because even something like blue lotion, which is a very mild thing, even if you rub a horse's leg with blue lotion, sometimes on a chestnut or a horse with a white leg, or even a bay horse, you'd get a little scurf, and I just don't understand what you just said, why they're doing what you just said. They don't want you to give a horse any kind of help they expect, especially in the standardbred business. They expect them to race 35, 40 times a year, and they allow them to race until they're 14. And because of the treatment and therapies that we were giving them, they were able to do that, and many of them in their older age, when they get it to be 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, ocelots start to form, and calcium from splints start to form, but the standardbred trainers knew how to handle it, knew in a humane way. I mean, I'm not talking about shock therapy or nothing like that, but how we used to do it. Now they're starting to stop all of that stuff, and I don't understand how they expect the horse to race week after week, and we're just talking about standardbred now, without any kind of help, a steroid shot after a race, a couple of cc's of banamine after a race, electrolytes. They just them three things after a race. They don't even want you to do that. So anyway, go ahead.
Well, this is what's happened now, Larry. You can't do any of that. The harness business is becoming more thoroughbred-like. They won't let you do anything. No blue lotion in the paddock. No scurf on the horse's legs. No, I mean, you can't do anything. You can't, the way they have the rules here at Hoosier Park anyway, is you can't give a horse nothing within 72 hours of a race. Once they get in to go, you're not supposed to give them anything but feed and water. If they won't ingest it themselves, you can't give it to them.
Who gives the Lasix?
The Lasix is given in the paddock by the paddock vet.
Any
You
detention bonds?
Detention barn here is in the paddock. Is a 14 race paddock. All horses go to the paddock 5 hours before the race, 4.5, 5 hours. They're locked up in that paddock 4.5 hours before they race. A lot of them ship here 2, 3, 4 hours to get here in a trailer. They unload them. They're in the paddock 4 or 5 hours sitting in a stall in a paddock where they're not comfortable. Then they race. After they race, they can't give them nothing or do anything. They put them back on a trailer and they drive 4 or 5 hours back home.
Now, these horses that you're talking about, and we'll just talk about who's a park and what you're talking about. They come in. Some of them are shipped in, so they get into the paddock, shipping for an hour or two. They get a shot of Lasix. They lose about 20, 30 gallons of fluid in their body. Then they're put in a stall for 4 hours with no water bucket in the stall. Then they're expected to race, and after the race, they're expecting you not to do nothing to help them recover.
Nothing. You're supposed to put him on a trailer and take him another 2, 3, 4, wherever you're at, back home. And then by the time he gets back to his comfortable stall, he's lost at least 60 pounds. You know this, okay?
Absolutely.
Here at Hoosier Park.
All fluid, by the way.
All fluid.
And like I said one other time, if a horse weighs 1,000 pounds, 700 pounds is fluid. If he loses 30 because of Lasix and 30 because of sweating, that's 10%. After 10% of fluid loss, all organs start to malfunction. And it's a serious problem that nobody talks about.
That's all you see. I mean, you come to Hoosier Park on a hot, humid night, Larry, you'll see 5, 10, 15 horses tying up after the race. They're throwing buckets of water on them to keep them from tying up. What is that going to do?
How I started paying attention to that problem was I was sitting in the grandstand one day. I had no horses in at Hialeah racetrack, the Thoroughbreds, and about I think it was 3 or 4 horses collapsed after during the race card after a race, and 3 of them collapsed by the time they got the saddle off them when they came back. And then I started looking into Lasix and dehydration and everything. And I've been working on something now. This is the first time I'm saying this. I've been working on something now for the last 10 years. And I'll just go very, very briefly. The horse's body temperature when after a race or during a race, normally it's 99 degrees, say 99 to 100. During a race, right after a race, it can go up to 102, 103. Now, the body temperature, once it goes past 103, over 103, 104, which happens if the horse is dehydrated, because the body temperature in a horse is regulated by the horse sweating. If he has nothing to sweat, and near the end of the mile, the body temperature raises. Once it starts to raise, gets above 104, all organs start to collapse. They start to fail. Okay, so in that structure, that body temperature is regulated by the horse's brain, which is in his head, in between his 2 ears. So I've been trying, and I haven't figured out, but it's something that you'd have to put in the freezer. I've been trying now, and I called all around the world trying to find a cloth, just like a towel, that you could make a skull cap with, that goes right over the horse's head, underneath the bridle, that as soon as the temperature of the horse gets hot, this thing gets cold, and it cools the horse's head, which cools the horse's brain, which keeps the horse's temperature down. There's not one thing out there that will do that. Now, I already have one invented where you could put the freeze, the stuff you put in the freezer, but the grooms ain't going to do that. And that ain't going to work. So I'm still waiting for something. But anyway, go ahead.
There's one problem with that. They won't let you bring it in the paddock and use it.
Well, if it's made out of material that will do what I said, just a material like a towel that's made out, that has something woven into it, like the copper jackets and stuff, that is a material that has something woven into it that will extract heat and turn it cold. That's what I'm talking about.
Like a cooling towel.
You're just bringing a hood in. You can put it inside a hood, or it's just a skull cap. They're never going to know. And if they did, there's nothing illegal about that. And that's another thing. You got to get people in charge instead of these political appointees that are fucking up everything. You got to get people in charge that understand the business, understand training, know what the hell is going on instead of just sitting there and collecting a paycheck.
Absolutely. That's the first thing. You got to get people in charge that make these rules that say, wait a minute, this might hurt horses more than help them. They want to catch cheaters. Okay. They've outlawed drugs because they want to catch cheaters. I know guys are going to cheat. They're going to cheat. There's more drugs coming in now that guys are using than ever before with all these rules. They tweak the tests a little bit. They tweak it a little in Hong Kong and China, and they bring it in, and they get it, and they can't find it. It keeps going on, but they've outlawed things that actually help horses, trying to stop cheaters they're never going to do it.
You're 1,000% right, in my opinion. The only good thing about what you're saying about this new Heiser thing, they took over thoroughbred racing and they're trying to get into harness racing. I was talking with Freddie Hudson, and he told me that Heiser now wants to get all them rules and regulations into standardbreds, but the standardbred people are smart enough to resist them. So now Heiser is starting to make some concessions. They're willing to work a little bit more, which is good. So now if they're willing to work a little bit more, you have to get the right people that they're negotiating with to make these rules so you can help some of these horses. And I think that's happening. But when I told Freddie, I says, Freddie, don't ever agree to have Heiser make these rules because they'll completely ruin the game. And I says, I can't believe they're going to give him $800,000 to examine the effects of Lasix. I mean, you and I could do that in 2 minutes. You know,
1 minute. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, so anyway, go ahead.
So, the first step is get knowledgeable people appointed to make these rules that make sense. Not a rule to say, oh, we'll stop them from doing something. It's not going to stop it. You have to make rules that make sense in the business, that don't hurt these horses. You can't have horses locked up 5 hours to try and stop guys from cheating when they're going to cheat anyway. You know what I'm saying? You're hurting 150 horses to stop 10 of them that guy might be cheating. You know what I'm saying? So you got to have knowledgeable people making these rules. That's number one. Number two, all the drugs that they have taken away and the trainers can't help their horses recover. On top of that, the style of racing today, they go so fast. These horses are all out from the time the gate opens till the finish of the race. These horses are all out. There's no slow quarters or backing down to half. There's a rule here at Hoosier Park to the drivers. If you go a quarter slower than 29 seconds, a $500 fine.
Wow.
29-second quarter, every quarter's got to be 29 seconds. Or it's $500 fine. Now, figure it out. What kind of mile does that set up? They have $5,000 claimers here going 52. I mean, and you can't give them nothing to help them recover. The owners want them back in the next week. I understand they're paying bills. They want their horses to race 4 times a month. But if you can't help one recover because they've taken everything away from you, how are you going to keep them? This is why you see horses race 6, 7 times. They're gone for a month or two. They'll race 7, 8 times. Oh, what happened to him? Oh, he's gone. He hasn't raced in a while. You can't keep them going week after week with no therapeutic help. It just can't happen.
Yeah. So
it's a problem. It's a problem in racing today. It really is. And along with the PETA people, you can't. They're worried about, you can't whip a horse, which I understand. I'm not for whipping horses or hitting horses, absolutely, but you can't do anything. I mean, it's like you were talking about quarter cracks, okay? We used to patch the quarter cracks with the screws and the wire and the fiberglass. You can't do any of that anymore. Any
Why
kind
not?
of
Well, I never heard about that. Why?
Oh no. Any kind of screws or wire or any foreign substance like that, that's what do they call it? Cruelty to the horse. You can't do any of that. They see that, you're scratched and fined.
Are
Oh
you
yeah.
kidding? That Scott, that's hard to believe.
I'm telling you, Larry, you wouldn't believe it. You wouldn't believe it. How they walk through your barns. Well, here at Hoosier Park, you're not allowed to use any kind of drugs that aren't FDA approved. They all got to be FDA approved drugs. Whether you're injecting it or painting it on or feeding it, they all got to be FDA approved. So
if you have to inject an ankle with Depo, with cortisone, how long out you have to be?
7 days, it'll test for 7 days.
Wow.
It tests for 7 days. So you race one, he comes up a little sore. We used to inject him, right, with cortisone, a little Vetilog, right? Not now. You figure on giving him 2 weeks off if you want to inject one, because it'll test for 7 days. It's just unbelievable.
You know, they have the test today is so sensitive that
yeah, that's another thing.
I never got a positive in my life. One time I did, and it was for procaine penicillin. I bought a horse, and they had him on penicillin when they shipped him to me, because the horse he was a little sick, and they kept him on penicillin. And I got the horse, and I laid him up maybe a week, and then I started back with him, and I raced him just under the 30-day rule, and I won the race. And he come back positive. The only positive test I ever got came back positive for procaine penicillin, and I couldn't believe it, because I gave him no penicillin. The other people at Shipton had him on penicillin, and this is a true story. I appealed it, and they took the horse and they put him. This is at the Meadowlands. They put him in the detention barn in the Meadowlands, and they gave him. They didn't give him nothing. Oh, they gave him penicillin, or they wanted to wait another couple of days to see if it come back positive. I don't know what they did. All I know, I was notified after 6 days that the horse died, and I won. And I won a suit because I found out that procaine that they put in the penicillin. I hope I get this right. I probably got the years screwed up. That it was invented 30 years prior. The propane in the penicillin, it was put in there, I think, so it would last longer or whatever. And anyway, they said that procaine penicillin can last up to 3-4 months in the system. And with the sensitive tests they have today, you can't even give a horse pen. You got to be scared to death, and really for all bullshit reasons, and you're not helping the horse. There's a whole lot I could talk for hours about this, from especially with the thoroughbreds, because the thoroughbreds, they kind of accept whatever happens. The top guys know the drugs they can get away with, even though they're killing 1,000 horses a year. But even simple stuff like, if you say, why are you putting the hay in the hay bag? A horse is supposed to eat off the ground so the nasal, no dust gets in the lungs and infects and everything else. They're born to eat off the ground. Throw the hay on the ground like we do in the standardbreds. No, they have it up because it looks better. All bullshit reasons. And that's why I want a thoroughbred trainer to come on here and just talk to me about the differences in the training and this and that, and why a horse, a thoroughbred, they have to. In my opinion, there's no reason why a thoroughbred can't race every 10 days. No reason at all. But anyway, go ahead. We'll get back to Hoosier Park.
Yeah, so Larry, like I was saying, the trainers have a tough time because getting even the vets. Okay, the vets here at Hoosier, they're all licensed by the commission. Okay, and the commission rules the vets where they can just come in and they can get all the vets' records. They just seize their records. If they don't keep meticulous records of they have to account for every cc of medication that they bought and ordered, and who got it, when, what day, what was the time, what was the day. And all that's doing is trainers don't use the vets. They're doing it themselves. The trainers are at farms trying to do it themselves, and they don't know what they're doing, and they're giving too much, too little, and again, detrimental to the horse. Whereas the big stables, they got the vet there. The vet will do anything they want him to do, so they're good. The vet will keep the records. The vet will give them what they need, But the little guys, they can't get the vets to work for them. The vets won't do it, so they're off doing it themselves, and that leads to problems. Every rule they come up with leads to problems. It's not a fix. They don't have knowledgeable people making these rules. It's a big problem, Larry. It's a big problem.
I really believe what I told Freddie Hudson, and Freddie Hudson agreed that they should be a big round table that people, trainers, standardbred trainers, thoroughbred trainers, veterinarians, whoever else you think, knowledgeable people sit for a conference for 1 week and talk about all the stuff that we're talking about now, and it would start something that might be able to save harness racing. And
Absolutely.
I hope they come up with, but they keep everybody's fighting with everybody, and it's just terrible.
That's how nothing gets done. Everybody's fighting and got something to say, and you're saying it for yourself, and then nobody can agree on anything, and nothing gets done. And meanwhile, who suffers? The horses suffer.
Do they go around to the barn and take blood before, once a horse is in the go, like the day before the race or something? They do any of that pre-race?
No. Certain people they do. Some people they do. When we're here at Hoosier, if you're on the grounds, when you're in to go, the morning of the race, you got to put a sign in front of your door, in to go. And that way, when the security comes around every hour, they check, they watch that horse that's in to go. They know he's in to go. And they're watching him. Plus, they got cameras in every stall at Hoosier Park. So the guys on the grounds are really at a disadvantage than the guys shipping in. Because the guys shipping in, they can't, they don't know what they're doing. They got to be there 4.5 hours before, just like they do on the grounds. But when you're on the grounds, you're under constant 24-hour surveillance. They're watching everything. They're making you put signs in front of the horse's stall that he's in the go to let everybody know this one's in the go. So, no,
so
they don't.
If you're stabled on the grounds and you have 20 horses, the racetrack has a camera in every stall?
Every stall at Hoosier Park is on camera. All 800 stalls, the bath stalls, the aisleways, the tack rooms. There's thousands of cameras on the backstretch at Hoosier Park. And they're all going, and they're all being taped. They're on a flash drive. They can go back and they can look at they can see if a dime is heads or tails laying in the aisleway. They can zoom. That's how the cameras are.
Well, I'm sure these guys already figured out how to get around that.
Well, they take them off the grounds and then they bring them back. That's what they do.
Yeah.
And a lot of guys, like I said, there's 800 stalls. Only 400 of them are filled because most guys are all off the track. And the guys that are stabled on the track, they got half of their stable off the track and they rotate them back and forth.
Yeah.
The ones they want to do something to, they take them out and then they bring them back in and they rotate them. So they're not stopping anything. They're still getting done what they want. It's just a big inconvenience for everybody.
Yeah. I don't know. I mean, I have a lot of ideas how to stop the drugs and how to stop the cheating and everything else, but you would need a big round table. You would need even racetrack owners and people. If the racetracks that are state owned, you'd need a representative there, and maybe eliminate. Well, you can't eliminate, but create a situation where they don't want to cheat, just like the Meadowlands did. The Meadowlands just had astronomical purses. They had a mile racetrack where if you did do something stupid, it would look very obvious. Plus, why do it? Because you'd have the purse is $15,000-$20,000 for cheap races. I don't know what the answer is, but I do know one thing. If you had a round table discussion, maybe there'd be 20-30 people there that really knew what the hell they were talking about and just stayed there for a month or a week or whatever. A lot of these problems could be solved, and it would stop the government or whoever is forming these organizations to kind of take over. Just me and you talking are not going to solve the problem, but a bunch of us together probably would come up with some real good ideas. But
well, a big problem today, Larry, is you got track owners that they don't care about the racing. They want to be in the casino business. They're all racinos, and they're more worried about the racino than they are the racing business.
Yeah, so, that's another problem. It's all
that's a big problem.
I went through it when I was with Larry Kadish, and he tried to buy Roosevelt Raceway, and Sonny Werblin, who worked for Madison Square Garden, who owned Roosevelt at the time, they just sold it to developers. And it's all about the money and the envelopes and all about politics and all about bullshit. And the harness racing and horse racing and especially harness racing, they get put on the back burner. And right now they wouldn't even be harness if it wasn't for the casinos and the deals that were written where they would get supplemented. And that's really they just incompetent people let it get to this point. And the thoroughbreds were a little better at it than the standardbred people, and it's sad.
Well, the thoroughbreds got more of an interest. They got more of a handle. They got more people that bet. But it's going on in the thoroughbred business too. Handles way down. The takeout is so high at all these tracks that there's no money to win. That's another thing. They've gotten rid of all the gamblers. The gamblers are basically gone. They gave them no chance. I don't know if you know it or not. Another thing that's going on at these tracks is with the high takeout, they have these computer guys, we call them, that they have these computer programs where they could level out all the pools. They're getting the information on the closing odds before the race closes. So they know the true odds when the race is going to close. So they have these computer programs that level out the pool where they bet every combination so they break even. All they're doing is breaking even. They're putting, let's say, 100,000 into the race. They're cashing for 100,000. They're breaking even, but the tracks are rebating them back 10% just to get the handle. So it's a fake handle. There's 150,000 in the pool, 25% takeout. That's 37,000. That leaves 112,000. The computer guys are taking out 100. How much is left to win for everybody else? There's 12,000 handle, real handle. But the track looks as we're handling 150,000 a race. No, you're not. Because the computer guys are taking what they bet back and they're working off that 10%. It's a fake handle. People don't realize that there's no handle. There's no real money to win. So that's another problem in racing. The management and the track owners don't care. All they want to do is boost their numbers. Oh, look how we're doing. No, you're not. It's not real.
Yeah, I don't know too much about that, but there were a couple of brothers from Canada that told me all about that. I'm not familiar with that, so I leave it to them. But
that's what's happening.
Yeah, what you said is true because they told me the same thing, and it's sad. It's just sad. I just hope they're able to survive, and I hope they fix it real soon. I don't know what the answer is, And, I stand alone. I have somebody like you that comes on, and hopefully other people. I have some other people coming on, but it's like two guys, the two guys trying to fix something that the government is, I think, is trying to take over, or incompetent people are trying to fix it. So I don't know how to fix it. I do know one thing. When the first year I was at Roosevelt Raceway, they had a problem. The horsemen, they had a problem with management, and all the horsemen met at Ganwa. It was a Chinese restaurant that was across the street from the Roosevelt Raceway, and the horseman committee hired F. Lee Bailey, and F. Lee Bailey came to the first meeting, and he told us what to do. He says, don't to get their attention, nobody put any horses in the box for tomorrow morning, and we'll meet here tomorrow afternoon at 1:00. Well, the next day he came into the Ganwa restaurant and he says, well, I just want you to know that I quit. He says, because the box was full.
They still entered, right?
Yeah, and none of you guys want to stick together. There's nothing I can do for you. Good luck. And he left. And I learned a long time ago that the box was full by all the top guys: Lee Broglio, Stanley Dancer, Billy Houghton, Al Burton, all the heavyweight guys with the big stable that were friendly with management,
Right.
that got favors from the race office, and that were doing okay, and they didn't care about anybody else. They didn't care about the guys that were in barn Z or W or Y. They cared about the guys that were in barn A, B, C, and D. So I learned that a long, long time ago. But I'll tell you, through it all, what I did in my life, I did because of an addiction. I'm not proud of it, but I would much rather, I would have given my left arm, if Tannenbaum would have just left me alone and let me go on with my life and race my horses, I would have tolerated all the bullshit and nonsense, because that's the only thing I love to do. And I'm sure that's the same way for you. I mean, and everybody.
Absolutely. Larry, I have a passion for this business. I'm here because I want to be. I really don't have to be. I've been doing this since I'm 16 years old. This is all I ever did. This is what I do. As long as I'm able to do it, I want to do it. I want to try and help. I want to try and promote owners. I got owners. I'm always promoting the business, but it's getting harder and harder because of the things they do. And then people look and they say, why would I want to be in that business? And I'm like, well, it's a great business. And they're like, no, it's not. And I'm like, well, it used to be, and why can't it be again? I don't understand. Why can't it be? It's the same business, but it's just not the same. It's just not. And it's not run by people that have a passion. They have other agendas. It seems that the people have other agendas and not the passion of the horses, the gamblers, and the business. They don't. And that's a problem.
Scott, I appreciate you coming on, and you'll come back again.
Anytime, Larry. I'll come on anytime. I'll answer questions, whatever your people want to know. I'm more than glad to come on with you anytime. The tough questions, whatever.
Well, it's great to hear. It's great to hear about what's going on at racetracks across the country, and you told us a lot of things that I was not aware of. So I'm going to let you go now, because there's 2 or 3 questions I want to answer, and we've been on almost an hour, and my man I left here is ready to hit me with a hammer. So Scott, thank you for coming on, and we'll do it again soon.
Anytime, Larry. Glad to be here.
Okay, buddy. Bye.
Long live harness racing. Take care, Larry.
So long. Okay. You got some questions for me? I know you have 1 or 2. You kept waving.
Well, when you were talking about different bridles and stuff, someone asked what a Murphy blind was. I know you said
A Murphy blind is, here's a Murphy blind. I should have had a picture of it. A Murphy blind is, say I'm the horse's head, and that's his 2 eyes right here. And a blinkers are like this. So blinkers are used most of the time they have a couple of different reasons, and they act different for every horse. Blinkers off most of the time for lazy horses. It closes them up and it makes them focus more, or horses that are afraid of things, and it keeps them more focused. Sometimes blinkers do the opposite, so you have to try them on different horses. So that's blinkers. That's full cups. Then they have half cups that are like this. A horse sees a little bit more. Then they have can't see back, so the horse just can see everything around them except he can't see behind them. A Murphy blind, what a Murphy blind does, it's a piece of leather. It's a piece of leather in harness racing anyway, that's fastened to the cheek piece of the bridle, and then it comes just like this, and it covers the eye a little bit. So when the horse wants to see out of both eyes, he has to turn his head this way to see. So if a horse it keeps the horse from going straight instead of cocking his head. Because if you had a Murphy blind, like this, and the horse cocked his head like this, he'd be completely blind. So it forces him to keep his head straight so he could see. And if he cocks it even more this way, he'd be able to see out of both eyes. And but they also have hoods, blinkers, that have a cup that comes like this, and instead of being like a cup like this, it covers a little bit more, and they would have to keep their head like this to see out of both eyes. That's what a Murphy blind is. I have a tough time explaining these
Well,
things.
just on the same topic, why don't you, no one asked, but why don't you throw in the shadow roll?
A shadow roll is just it's just a roll that goes under the horse's nose like this. So when he's going, it comes out and he can't see what's directly in front of him, or depending on how big the shadow roll is or how high you put it. Because some horses, when they see a shadow, they leap over it thinking it's a log in the road or something. So that's all the shadow roll is. It's just something that they don't see the bottom. And some horses, they have to wear real big ones and cover them up pretty good. But that's what a shadow roll is.
I have quite a few little comments, questions, and stuff.
Go ahead.
We've been going kind of wild. Would you want to address all of that on Thursday night if we pull all the questions out and could come back?
Okay. All right. My man here says that there's a lot of comments and a lot of questions, but we've been going now for an hour and 5 minutes, and I think he wants to go home.
No, I'm just, because we could use probably Thursday night's hour for you to respond to everything. And not
Okay.
just rush it off quick because we're getting late in.
All right. I have some people coming on probably Thursday. We're going to do another one Thursday at 8:00, and we're going to try to get my two friends on that were responsible for me getting this award. You see, Anthony, see the award? Can you hear me now? See what it says here? That's because of you. Has been awarded for the most fucked up podcast on YouTube. So Thursday, I hope you got it all straightened out. Just like Scott did. It's very simple. Just have your computer, hit the link, and that's it. I'm learning. It's sad that it took me 6 weeks, and I think I did it all right. But it's sad that it took me 6 weeks to do what a 10-year-old kid can do in 6 seconds.
The problem wasn't on your side. It was
yeah, but
Dominic
before that, I
Anthony.
fucked up a lot too.
You know. You get
I'm
a mulligan once
and you
in
know
a
what?
while.
You know what's good is if me holding these things up, if I learn how to put pictures on there whenever I'm talking, to put pictures on there, that would be good. It'd be easy to explain. But I also want to get guys like Ian McKinley on here to help some of these guys with their foot problem, because I don't really explain things right. Anyway, okay, folks, thanks for watching. We'll see you at 8:00 on Thursday night, and send in all your questions about anything. It don't only have to be about horse racing. It could be about anything else. You want to say something, buddy?
Thank you guys coming in, listening, and look forward to seeing you on Thursday.
Thank you all. See ya.